Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to do an easy color blending layered ink application lesson here. I've done these before, but it's time to do a little update. It's good to do these every now and then. I'm going to be adding dye-based inks onto both. I'll show you what it looks like on glossy cardstock as well as kind of a more matte cardstock here. This one's a larger piece right here. We're not going to really be making scenes out of these unless I do some kind of, video later on utilizing these two examples here. But we're going to be using a couple different brands of dye-based inks. Now, I'm purposely not using the Marvy inks, which are kind of my favorite inks to use in conjunction with other brands, okay? But we're going to use the brands that, I don't know, more of you might have here in the Ranger brand Distress Inks and Memento, okay? Now, these inks right here have the same consistency as most other inks on the market. The only one that's a little bit different is the Marvy, which are thinner, okay? But that being said, even when I use Marvy inks, they only come in blank pads these days without the dedicated cases. But these inks, the Marvy inks are thinner inks, okay? They're thinner, typically brighter in general, which isn't, necessarily what we want all the time. Distress inks are super popular because they're more kind of weathered and aged, so they have a different kind of look on the brightness scale, okay? But, okay, that being said, the only thing that I'm going to be using to apply I haven't really practiced with these very much. I've used them a couple times and I thought they worked pretty good, but infused cotton rounds, I don't know if we want that jojoba infused pad, that probably isn't necessarily something that's working in our favor, but I thought, no, those look pretty good, and they look like, in theory, they could work out pretty good, and I've tried them on a couple scenes so far, and I thought they worked, not bad. I still need to find kind of what their, if any, kind of the benefits of using something like that over just a wadded up paper towel, which I've been doing a lot lately since Clear Snap has gone out of business and the color box stylus tools are no longer around, which I really loved. And I won't get into those ones. You can just look them up on my on the web or on my video channel here. But those ones were really good sponge applicators. Okay, so that being said, you can just use a kitchen sponge if you want to here. All right, so in order to kind of achieve these, varied and kind of glazed looking, very deep space, bright applications of colors, okay? What we're doing is we're not just using one value or one tint or shade of a given hue. Okay, now this one is just, the hue is blue, okay, but I've used a little bit of warmer blues in here, medium, light, and dark tones, okay? Now, a lot of things, if people haven't seen this process used before, they see a scene like that, okay, it's largely pretty dark, in terms of value, so they think that maybe the darkest blue was used all around, and then there's just a little bit of the lighter blue in there. So maybe they think that the lighter blue has just been applied on the interior here where you can see it. But in reality, that lighter blue, including some distress ink I think I used on this one, is all around and underneath all of these darker tones, okay? And it's getting this vibrancy from the use of that glazed kind of layered depth, all right? All right, and we'll show you how utilizing more inks makes the process much easier, okay? And believe it or not, I think it makes it more expedient because if you try to just go in with your darkest of tones and layer that in here like that, it can be a little bit choppier and not as smooth of an application, okay? All right, now, I used to teach these classes all the time, and Stampscaping 101 was largely about the application of inks. People learn composition and everything like that, but composition's super easy. I just had people grab kind of their foundation stamp and a sky stamp. They stamped those out, and then we just started coloring in, and then people filled in later with foreground imagery and whatnot. But one of the things that started out those classes with, we used to use pens like this, like 12 different colored pens, all right? And then ink pads started coming out, so I started using ink pads, okay? Because that was just a lot easier. But then when I started thinking about this entire process and the applications of ink on the surface to create these kind of glazed, really super rich surfaces, I thought, okay, I'm going to start using the Reinkers for everyone's first colors, okay? And that just, it eliminated any type of technique, type of, yeah, I don't know, application difficulty. Everyone usually got it, but they just got it so much faster with the use of a reinker. Okay, so let me show you how I'm going to do this with the reinker, okay? And I'll refer to a couple of these recent scenes that I've done here. Okay, so we see in each of these zones here, okay, there's, by zones I'm talking about, here's a grass zone, here's a dirt zone. You can call that, you know, the cabin kind of a zone too. It's an object as opposed to, you know, kind of a general area. But there's lights and darks in each one of these spaces, okay? And I'll show you how to do that, okay? Most people are used to coloring, okay? So they see an entire space or something like that. Here's the ocean, okay? Let's imagine this entire space is an ocean. So they want to just color it blue, all right? And what we're going to do here is we're going to show you how to color and light at the same time so you get that range and this kind of vibrancy and this illusion of light coming from within your space out, okay? I mean, you know what I mean? As opposed to what we're really doing is we're working with reflected light. You know, there's no light bulb behind here, in other words, but that's kind of the illusion that we're creating here by having darker perimeters around our spaces or our entire card in general. Okay, that's easy to do here. All right. One of the things I've been showing is even when we're doing kind of a cool colored scheme, all blues or something like that, sometimes it's good to go in. This is an oil painting kind of technique where you just kind of, no matter what kind of temperature scheme you're working in, cool tones, warm tones, whatever, you can lay down a really light value, okay? Starting off with, I don't know, just any type of warm tone. I don't know if I would go canary yellow or something like that. That might be a little bit too specific because if I lay blues over yellow, it's going to give me green. But this isn't, this has yellow in it right here, okay? This antique linen. But what I'm doing here now, see, I got my entire card coated with this, and it took like 10 seconds or so. I don't know, did it even take 10 seconds? It was like 5 seconds or something like that. But what I'm doing is I'm just adding this color in like this. Okay, but here's the trick. You don't just add that. What you do is you add more, okay? It's not going to get any darker using an existing ink in its full saturation. But now watch this here. See this little area down here? I didn't really fill in all of that. I just kind of came around here. I put a couple streaks across there, but I retained some of that lighter area. So you see less ink in the middle. I don't know if you can tell. And more ink on the perimeter, okay? And by using this, a few drops of the re-inker fluid, could be Memento too, you know, whatever lightest color you have. Like, this is antique linen here. But see, now that I've used the re-inker, I don't even need the pad anymore, okay? But like a desert sand would be a good one here. Something really light. Okay, now it doesn't have to be a warm tone, you know. I'm often doing areas of a lot of blue, and sometimes I don't always put in kind of a warm tone underneath it, but it's just kind of it adds a little visual interest to it. But like a Memento Summer Sky, and I have here the tumbled glass from Ranger, you know, the Distress, okay? But what we're doing is we're laying down this foundation color, okay? Now let's go with the blue tones here. All right. Now I could have just went in, like I said, straight with the tumbled glass. If I was teaching a workshop, I think I would just take them right in with the blue. All right, so let's switch applicators. Let's try some of this little pad here, okay? The cotton rounds, okay? Let's see this right here. You're just putting a few drops of that in. And with your lightest of colors like this, you're going to be getting the most amount of coverage with these lighter tones, okay? So see this right here? Tumble glass is pretty dark there, huh? Okay, now watch this. I'm staying on the outside edge quite a bit longer before I go into my scene, okay? Now watch this. See how that's really blending in really nicely? I want to utilize some of the dryer. Maybe I put too much ink on here. See, it's really gliding across here really easy because I've kind of super saturated the surface. So it's not absorbing into my paper quite as fast, okay? All right, now watch this where I do my transitions. So you have to utilize your drier version of the color to get these kind of transitions in here. And use a lighter touch too, okay? Okay, see that right there? Took all of what? Maybe if I wasn't blabbing away here, this could have taken 5 seconds. Now, we're not always just going to be working on kind of a wide open space here. We might be working on a scene where there's, a specific blue area, okay? The whole thing's blue, but let me show you what it looks like on here. Okay, this is an area down here. Let's just go on with this, okay? I won't go with the warm, but let me show you how this looks when applying it in here, okay? Okay, now this is kind of a nighttime scene, so I'm not going to do like warm tone like sand or something like this. This is night, okay? So this is going to be a blue tone scene, but see this right in here? See this right here where I'm applying it, and we have lighting on the ocean surface because I didn't apply it, and that's what's happening right here, okay? All right, so let's do that up in the sky too. Watch this. You could almost, apply one color over this, entire stamped sketch and, call it a day in terms of your coloring if you wanted to. Because look at this, even with one color used on here, look at that in terms of your lighting statement now, see? But here's the thing, I didn't color in everything. I'm kind of going around on the perimeter. If you want some clouds to remain nice and light, then you don't color them out, okay? So see, I'm doing the same type of thing. I'm just kind of, in this area right here, it's kind of darker, lighter in here. And the clouds right here, we have some billows, so I'm just going a little bit darker down here and around on the water, darker on the outside edges, okay? Just like this. All right. Now here's the thing too, keep everything nice and comfortable. If you're doing kind of a streaky kind of look, like I often do for skies or water, turn the card in an angle that's the most comfortable. Everyone always never wants to change it. Everyone's always working upright, Even if you're working on a positioner, just turn your positioner so you can go on with a nice, smooth application of color. Doing like this, with your hands, and so that's not going to give you a nice graceful application of any type of color, okay? If you're working with colored pencils or something like that. Look at that, I have ink on my finger right there. Keep your movements ergonomic. Okay, let's move on to my next value, Bahama Blue. Don't change your applicator if you're using the same kind of family of hues, okay? See how much, that's a little bit darker now, okay? But it's also not quite as dark properly as this color is because I'm blending it with the color that's already in here and the one that I'm kind of utilizing right now. See that? Let me do it in one corner. Now see this right here? Stay in one corner or one area and then look at that beautiful application of tone. When people see this, they think that the application is like this, okay? Like up the side or something like that. But if you're doing that, you're not making use of this type of kind of motion right here, okay? All right, so here you go. Now, if you're, working in a very arid area, I don't know, Utah, Arizona, somewhere desert kind of oriented, things go on a little bit, they dry faster. So you might have to go on with a thicker coating, or might get to this point, and this thing's completely dry. So what you do is you just add some more of this onto here, reapply it, and then just proceed with whatever color that you stopped with, okay? It's not going to hurt anything. The more kind of tones that you add on, potentially the richer it can become. Okay, but you see this kind of glow working right now? All right. Let me show you what it looks like on here. All right. Now see on here, maybe I don't go in to the scene quite as far as I did with the previous color, okay? The darker you go, you become a little bit more perimeter oriented, or a lot more perimeter oriented, depending on, what color you're on. If you're on like black or something like that, then, it's right on the edges, okay? But that being said, this is only the second color on this scene right here, so I'm going to go in, reasonably far in here, but it might be with that version instead of the full version. You see what I mean? So you just come in here like that, and you get this nice range. So put the brakes on when you get here. Make your streak maybe a little bit shorter than the longer one with the lighter color, okay? See how that's really starting to develop? You see the correlation here between this technique and, the technique that you would use on a scene. Okay, so Danube blue. All right. Always test and see what color that's going to look like. I think I'm getting... I got drops of ink all over my hands somewhere. I'm getting all these little spots here, but that's fine. See that spot right there? It would be, and that doesn't bother me, but watch. See how that blends right out? Let me show you what this does here, the benefits of those Reinkers. Let me use the worst technique possible on here. Okay, see that? Now watch this right now. Now this is glossy cardstock, okay, but even with glossy cardstock, if you don't do those kind of foundation inks, let me grab another piece of glossy right here, okay? Let me do that same type of thing on the glossy here. Okay, let me just really work it in like that. See that right there? All right. Now, that might blend out to some extent, but see that right there? It's not blending out so much because it's soaked in completely. Now I can just build up and, I could blend it out, but see, that's not happening on here. See that? See, it just blends right out because the card itself is super saturated with ink, and it's a little bit moist on the surface. So even with the most horrific kind of application that you can do on here, it will blend right out. And the darker tones are the ones that, people kind of have a challenge with at times, okay? Because, when you do something, every little bit will show up so much more definitively than with a super light tone, with that summer sky or, the antique linen on here. If you go like this everywhere, it barely shows up because it's not, it's a color that's not so much darker than the white of the paper, okay? All right, but seeing this is filling in like that. Danube blue. But see that nice glow that we're working with right there? Okay. I'm going to show you something. I have no affiliation with any accessory manufacturers at all. Okay, so when I'm saying something, I hope it doesn't come across as like a sales pitch, but because it's not. But let me just show you something here. Okay. Do you see these tones right here? All right, that's, that Bahama blue is, looks pretty bright on here, but this is what it looks like in comparison to this, okay? Let me just show you what, you don't need to switch out all your pads either, okay? If you just add in one brighter tone, okay, into the mix. Here's one Marvy ink right here, okay? Let's do this on half of it, and we'll leave the other half out, okay? Here, I'll use a different part of this so you can just see it's a pure version, just the Marvy ink right here, okay? Now this one's not very dark or anything like that. I'm just using a lighter version, okay? This is a Caribbean blue. The light blue is even much brighter than this, okay? But see, if you add in this style right here, you can really just, here's one color added into a mix of 4 others, okay? That's just brighter, but you see the difference between this side and this side? It's just a little bit more intense, right? Okay. So you can add in one tone. Here, let me add in a little one color that's very bright right here. So even if you had like 3 or 4 Marvy inks, okay, for one green, one blue, one brown, or whatever, red, yellow, even just the primary colors, if you add those in to any other range of any other brand of inks, okay? This isn't to say these ones are better, but just saying if you want to increase your brightness range, okay? Marvy's a good one to go with. Okay, so this is just Memento, and this one's Marvy right here. All right? So it just increases your range of intensity, okay? All right. So, not that everything has to be super bright either. I don't, like a super electric, color scheme that's only bright at, I don't want something just absolutely screaming at you. So I like kind of the duller range and then the brighter range so that I have a wider range of, it's like language. It's like the language of color, okay? And I don't want everything like electric hot, okay? That's why I like the distress ink so much in combination. Okay, but you see what's going on right here? Here's this, what's happening on here, like that, is what's happening right in there. All right? Okay, let's do a few more of these right here. And I'll show you how fast they can develop. Let's use a different color scheme, all right? So this was the blue tone kind of colors range, you can say. Let's go with the browns again. Let's use that Distress Antique Linen right here. Let me do a different color scheme up here and a different one down here, okay? But let's just, okay, now this is kind of more of a matte paper, all right? Cardstock. It's still coated. It's not like doing it on like copy paper or something like that. For this type of thing, I'd recommend some sort of cardstock, even if it is matte or silk weight, glossy, whatever. It's going to have that clay coating on here, which is going to be able to retain your color saturation and applications much better because they'll be a lot more surface oriented, okay? So I've got a pretty good amount of this on my paper towel in this case. Let's use a paper towel because not all of you are going to have this. I just got these things, but I don't know. When I'm using those things and I'm not even thinking about it, that makes for a good applicator. When you're not consciously aware of kind of your applicator, I just think things are, are happening just the way you want them to. Okay, so watch this right here. Now this is going to apply on here fast, well, I don't know about faster, but it's going to be more absorbent, okay, than glossy, because glossy just has that extra layer of sealant over the piece, okay? All right, so that's soaking in pretty fast here. It's almost soaking in so fast that it's good to go for maybe a second layer of it. Okay, adding that down like so. Now this is a half page here. I do half page scenes sometimes. Now, if you're doing half page scenes that have kind of large open areas, or especially in the case of like a full page scene, if you're doing this style of ink applications, or you're doing it as, you can use this type of application as a base layer. Let's say if you're doing something in colored pencil, as long as the cardstock's not like a glossy or something like that, you can use this type of technique right here just to really expedite things. Okay, you can get a base layer of, say, some dye-based things like this, and then finish off your scene with, colored pencils or something like that. Or you can even do, you know, alcohol markers or something like that. But having kind of a good kind of unifying base layer is a really good way to go. Okay, so see this right here? You can use all kinds of different touches and techniques. I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's like I'm shining a shoe or something like that, on this one right here. But this really blends out really nicely because it is just so wet. There's a lot of moisture in it, okay? So this is the same stuff on both sides right here. But I'm going to show you just the benefit of starting off, pretty light like this, okay? So let's just take this, okay? And I mean, this isn't like the perfect applicator in the world, a little wadded up paper towel, but let me just show you what you can do, with this type of thing. We never want to go for an application like that, but it's so light of a hue, okay? Now that really absorbed in fast, but see, it's so light of a hue that when you're starting off really light like that, or light of a value, I should say, okay, you can take and you can blend in that type of thing. Now, we're not going to do that, but that's just kind of an extreme version right here, okay? You're starting off with the lightest of values, so it's really easy just to blend that in, okay? Now, I really work that in there like that, okay? So if you're just being a little bit careful, with it, or more careful than that, you know what I mean? This stuff's really easy to do. I do this now because see how easy that is just to blend away? Can you see that little, you can do something like that and it just blends right in because you've kind of super saturated the pulp of the paper and the surface is starting to get, retain the moisture of it. So it's easier to blend in kind of moist or wet into moist than it is onto, wet onto dry. So that's what you do. Your first color is just getting the most amount of saturation, okay? And I don't know, as I've heard it explained before, it's kind of lubricating the surface too. I don't know about that, I guess so, especially maybe with dye-based inks or something like that. Or glossy cardstock, I meant. Okay, but here is this darker tone, okay? Now the darker tones, this is where kind of your, technique of, doing that application style kind of will really show up. But even with, kind of technique like that of just going like that, see how that blends in like that? And look at that beautiful, transition of tone. It's just absolutely seamless, okay? Now, if you're finding that, oh my gosh, I'm getting these shapes everywhere, I'm getting my fingerprint showing or something like that, it's too dry. So go back and use more of this, okay? And saturate it a little bit more. Remember to retain some areas of light like that, though, okay? See this right here? Now, see this right down here. What does this area look like right here? Well, it's like, well, where is this applicable? When are you going to be doing this? Well, this is what's going on. See right in here. Used a little bit more reddish tones. We're not done with this one yet, though. Or here's this brown in this one. This is kind of this area right in here, okay? So see that? Okay. All right, so, oh yeah. This one I was going to do two tones, okay? I'm getting a little bit of shredding with this paper towel, right on the edge, but who cares? This is like a tiny piece of paper towel too, but okay, let's go with the rich cocoa. I tend to forget what colors I have because usually when I get to this point, I'm usually switching over to Marvy. Okay, I use kind of these other brands of inks as my foundation inks. Okay, they're thicker inks. Okay, too, than the Marvy inks. Okay, so here comes some rich cocoa. You'll find that kind of when you're going wet into wet too, sometimes it's not applying as fast as you want. It's like, oh my gosh, I need it to get darker. It's just not getting any darker. Well, that's because it is so wet that it's not really accepting their darker inks very good. Okay, so that's the other side. Sometimes if you need to apply more of it and for it, you want it to get darker, like for a vignette type of look, then instead of wiping, okay, what you're doing is you're just kind of building up tone like this, okay? So you get little beads of that ink. See that right there? And you use a lighter touch, but you see how much darker that is right there than over there, okay? But look how this, let me show you that again. Here's one of my darker, mementos, okay? That's that, but look how beautifully and easy that blends in, okay? So the benefits of reinkers, but even if you don't have reinkers, it's like, okay, I only have pads. I don't have reinkers. I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch. You don't need to buy reinkers for every color. If you have like 3 of these, antique linen's a good one. You know, a light blue, memento summer sky. It doesn't even have to correspond with the pad that you already have, okay? Like these colors right now, like if I were to start from scratch and start buying these, I'm never stamping an image out in such a light color as this antique linen. So all I need is the reinker fluid for it. I don't even really need the pad. The pad's kind of convenient, though, but, if you're buying a reinker for, 3 or 4 different colors or something like that, why not spend your money on the reinkers as opposed to, if you're on a budget, getting the reinker and the pad, for, colors that you're not going to stamp out imagery in. So these days, a lot of times, I'm not really buying pads and reinkers to go with them. I'm just buying the reinker for any colors that I just want to utilize in the ink, kind of building, glazing process, okay? And you get a lot more ink in a reinker typically than you do in a pad anyway, so that is that. Okay, so let's go with some green areas, like in this kind of grassy area down here. Okay, so we're adding this in. At this point in time, I can feel now, see, as I'm adding this, what is this, peeled paint? This feels a little bit dry because I've been working on this for a while now, up top. So this is kind of dried out. So this is a little bit drier now. It might be good to use a little bit more fluid on here, or you can just go on with like 1 drop of it, let's say, okay? Like that, all right? And just apply it accordingly. It's a wetter applicator, so it's really blending in. Now, it's lighter, because it's, I have some of that distress antique linen in here with the peeled paint, okay? But yeah, this feels a lot better. And remember, this is like a pretty absorbent, this one's a silk weight paper, okay? But it's a lot closer to matte than, say, a glossy, okay? Now, don't use too much force, okay? You might go like this and say, oh my god, I'm getting such a light coat. I need to go on harder. Don't do that. Just get things in repetition. Your arm's not going to get tired either, If you turn this and you just apply it very lightly, like this, okay? And you just use something in repetition. Let the towel and, ink do the work, Don't use muscle. Don't use your shoulder and elbows or any, what I mean? Joints to do this. Just kind of let it, I'm just letting gravity do this. I'm really not applying any force, okay? I'm just dropping this down and then dragging it across like that, okay? And be aware of your kind of movement, okay? All right, this is green like that. I don't know if this pear tart's even going to show up. Let's see. Yeah, it might be a little bit warmer, yellower, a little bit slightly yellowy, yellower look in here. Okay. But look at that. That is looking really vibrant and bright. This one up top here is looking a little more aged. It looks pretty cool though, you know. It's not as bright as my Marvy browns, but let me show you where this also is applicable. These are vintage papers right here, but see this, what's going on right here? See how this is, you know, it's a little bit darker on the outside edge. Mine's warmer because I used a couple warmer tones in here, but see with this type of thing, you know, these are pre-printed kind of aged papers like this, but you see where this vintage type of thing is darker and lighter in here, okay? So see, this is, you can do this with any type of thing too. It's not just for scenes. I mean, if you put any type of items in here, cutouts or whatever, this would be a really good background. And here, this would be a perfect like word stamp for, I don't know, it looks antique to me, you know, using all those distress inks or whatever. This would be a great background for like a spring kind of card, or you can put a spring sentiment on there, or you can do like, you know, some cricket cutouts and put, you know, some flowers over the top of this one or something like this. And you just utilize these things as a kind of like a backdrop. Okay, but here comes some bamboo leaves. You see, I'm just kind of working a little bit darker each time. This is just a couple strokes in here, and that is done. Okay, cottage ivy right here. Darker to begin with. See that change right there? But look how beautifully that blends in. But look at the vibrancy that, you know, you're starting to develop in here. Okay, my fingers get all kind of inky from flipping this around, but you know, so be it. All right, but look at that glow right there. Sometimes, a lot of times, when I'm doing my pieces, you'll hit a certain hue or value. Okay, sometimes it's even black. It's going all the way to black. I'll keep building up darker and darker browns and darker greens or something like that. But only when I get to like black or something like that does it really kind of, you know, come about in terms of kind of looking real finalized. But see, this is like a big range of that color scheme in there. Now, I don't see this as being like grass in here, like as is, because it's a little bit too bright, you know. But I tell you what, let me show you just what this will look like right here. Let's do some grassy textures on here, and let's show you how this could build up into a scene, okay, using grass textures, okay? So I'm just going to take my sedge filler stamp. Let's stamp this out in some browns and greens or something like that sort, okay? All right. Now, this isn't necessarily a process I would use. I'd probably stamp this first, and then I would start coloring over the top of it, because these, I'm stamping wet into wet, so I want to apply some tone after I stamp this out too, okay? And then, yeah, this might just kind of wipe right off. But let's show you that you can do that though, okay? So this is just some of this rich cocoa here, okay? Kind of center pressure on this one. Don't rock it. Okay, that's a lot of sedge filler. You almost never do a scene using that much of it. But, okay, so that's just some textures in there. Okay, now, you see how these textures are in here? There's these little areas of shade right here and texture, okay? So I'm going to reiterate that type of horizontal kind of structuring in here. And I'll show you, this is what I always do in all my grassy types of terrains, okay? When that happens. And I do the same thing with water, but I just do it in blue instead. You know, there's kind of streaks of blue kind of running across that way. All right? But let's hit this with some darker tones, okay? Let's start with the cottage ivy, okay? And what I'll do is I'll just kind of run this in here like that. Yeah, see, my sedge filler is really... I should probably heat set this right now, but let's not bother with that at this point in time. But see this, I'm kind of running this across. Instead of streaking, I'll just dab. But this is just to come to show you can do that, okay? See that right there? So you can see that I've kind of come across here a little bit here. I don't know. Let's see it. Let's make it a little bit more definitive. Oh, here. This is really a perfect opportunity for your torn paper towel technique too. Let's work a little bit of values like this. Okay. So you see, come across like this. Kind of come, you know, out from the outside edge in like that. See that right there? And come in here like this, from this side in like this way, from the perimeters in, okay? See, I'm kind of largely on the towel, but see that? You know, it's different kind of clusters that are showing. This is kind of what you want to do for a surface that's indicative of kind of a change in surface. It's not flat like concrete or something like that, or asphalt, okay? So what you do is you vary the amounts of value throughout the piece, okay? So see, it's kind of dark light in there, all right? Okay. I tell you what, why don't we just stamp a scene in here, okay? All right. This was not planned, okay? Just sometimes when I start these scenes, I just, or exercises, you just want to see them through. This is almost looking too greeny down here, don't you think? Let's hit that a little bit with that. Let's go back to that rich cocoa, okay? Can't go back to the antique linen and change something in here. I mean, you can add another coat, but it's not going to read, you know? So let's go back in here with some of this. I don't think I used that dark brown down there, huh? I just used it up top. Well, let's use some of it down there in the grass as well. Okay, now see how I'm able to get darker up here using this rich cocoa, even though I've applied it before, but you see this area up here is getting drier up here, so more of the rich cocoa is transferring on there like that. Okay, so see this right down here. It's kind of creating, you know, a vignette in here, like so. All right. It's reasonably bright. When this dries, it's going to look much duller, okay? But what you do is you spray seal these pieces, so it'll have more look. See, that's all wet there still with ink, okay? But let me show you something right here. Here, I just did this scene right here, okay? Let's do, you know, I'm not going to have the road in there because, you know, it's all grass, but... Okay, here's the cabin with fence. Let's put this in here. Usually you put in your foundation image first, and then your filler image around it, but, you know, we were just doing, you know, an exercise on that. But just to show you where this is applicable in terms of creating a scene, let's finish this off some. Okay, so see there's that cabin with the fence. No, I didn't stamp it down here in the green area down here, otherwise I'd have that green showing all through that cabin right there, okay? Let's use some of these other trees from the other side of the cabin with fence up here. I'll get a little bit of that fence right there, but that's all right. Okay, see that right there? Now this area in here, and I don't know, we need to fill that in with something. This was not intended to be a scene, but again, you can make just almost anything out of your scenes. So let's do this. Here's a cloud. Let's pop it right in here. I tell you what, I'll work sky figures. I won't talk about all these things like too in depth here, but I'm just wiping off the little perimeter right up here. And I'm going to have this coming down like this, okay? A lot of times I snap it the other way so it's being top lit, but let's make these clouds a little bottom lit right here. Oops. There was a lot of blue on that. I stamped it in blue before. Oh well. What color is this? Or what? Yeah, okay, that is rich cocoa. Alright. Wiping it off down here. That's alright. Okay. Oh, but anyways, what I was saying is I'm kind of wiping off the edge of the cloud, making it so it'll blend in with the surrounding area really nicely. That's what you do with sky figures, just kind of wipe off the perimeter before you stamp them, and they won't look like rectangle shapes in the sky, okay? So there you go with that. All right. Now, let's fill in this. We have a lot of area down here. Let's fill that in with some additional imagery, okay? Let's see. I think a tree cluster stamp would be good. Let me go grab that wherever it is. Okay, let's add in some additional trees. This page is still fairly moist, okay, so you have to hold, if you're doing this where you're stamping over all of these glazed tones, hold, your image down a little bit longer. One of the things about scenic stamps, use smaller portions if you want to make it look like a different image, smaller trees, whatever. Okay, so it's right in here, background trees right in here. Just kind of using the top portions of them. Let's do this right here. Let's make it look like there's a little ridge in here, okay? Okay, let's do the same thing like this. See, this is where I'm kind of changing my terrain a little bit. And what does it take? It takes just a ripped paper towel. Okay, see that? Oh, it's really starting to develop kind of a nice, I don't know, visual narrative. We have the slope going this way, a slope going that way, there's a slope in the background. Let's do this right here. Let's put this on a slope. I think this is the most extreme I've done this one before, with these slopes in here, but that looks pretty good, I think. It kind of separates this instead of it being like one kind of boring, or I don't know, maybe not boring, but monotonous kind of plateau. That's all kind of the same height. This is kind of changing it to some degree. I'm changing it. I hope I'm not changing the spirit of what this video is about here, but the glazed tones. This is like a lot of fun here. Okay, yeah, see that right there? Look at that variation now. All right, and then if you want to go for a little bit of extra depth in your piece right here, but do you see where that having some areas that are a little bit lighter in the center like that, it changes the spirit. If this was all uniform green, that's not as interesting, okay? So this puts us on this, maybe we're on one of these little ridges or plateaus like that. Okay, now I'm not going to go further on this video right here because it's already kind of getting off subject in terms of the visual richness of the piece. But adding those layers on that, like that, in this sort of fashion, really brings out the richness of it. Okay, now let's do a little comparison here. I got up to the cottage ivy in terms of the application of the value range of grains. Let's just take a look at cottage ivy just on its own, okay? Okay, this is just a piece. This isn't even a piece of glossy, okay? But let's just apply that in there. See, I mean, I don't have to have, that base layer for these inks to blend in really nicely like this. But let's just take a look and see what this would look like. Okay, that's a full saturation of this cottage ivy right there, okay? It's not going to get any brighter, the more I put that on there. But let's take a look at this grain and these grains down here. See that right in there? I mean, there's just no comparison, between this and this, okay? So that's why we just, moving through those lighter tones in there, those transitioning tones, okay? Is that right there? It would look like that. These greens down in here also include browns too, right? But see that? That's the difference right there. And here's just, kind of one of the darker blues right there. Against these blues. Okay, now I went darker in here. I actually went to black. And that's what I would do on here too. I would use a little bit of black. I'll finish this piece off later. But moving through those different tones, this one right here I think has three different blues on here. Okay, so that is the difference right there. See how dull that looks? I'm not saying that this is a bad color, but I'm just saying that different values used in conjunction with one another, on top of one another, can really expand on the kind of the visual narrative that you're creating within your pieces in terms of representing, a deeper space. So you're saying that, okay, this isn't supposed to be kind of a flat surface. It's supposed to be something that's going from near to far or whatever, within this given area, be it within, like ocean or something like that, right down here. Like this is like, I don't know, 20 yards away from us, and that's, 3 miles from us out there in the distance, and that's what that's kind of doing right there, especially with the lighter incarnation out there. And something like this, again, we can go darker on this, but if you do go dark like this, it's good to have those foundations. Now this piece right here is completely dry, all right? So if I wanted to go darker on this, I would go back and add some more of that color that we used. I mean, if you had a summer sky or something like that, or, the tumbled glass would be perfect for that. Moisten it up again on the perimeter like that, and then go in with your darker tones. Okay, so anyways, color blending made easy through the use of reinker fluids on whatever applicator you're using, okay? But like I said, if you don't have that, you can still blend in like this, okay? That's with the darker, green on here too. But, it's just, it doesn't go on quite as smooth, as I'm applying this one on, a dry piece of paper. It's absorbing in here. It's grabbing that ink really fast. Or if you're doing it on kind of a wet, surface like that, it's, I don't know, it's like applying, a moist sponge or something like that on like glass or something, like wet glass or something like that. That's what it feels like, okay? Now on this one right here, I am going to go in and I'll add in some darker shadows and things like that in here, in which case, I'll probably reapply some of this antique linen in here, just so I can apply those darker tones in here much more selectively or whatnot. Okay, so anyways, hope this video came in handy for you, and hope you see the benefits of some reinkers. Like I said, if you have like, even if you have like 3 of these or something like this, blues can be used for greens because blue is a component of green. You can use these warm tones in uh, everything. I've used, it's in even in here. Okay, see that slight tinge of warmth right there? You know, this is kind of white right here, but see that little one? That's the antique linen, okay? And it's up here a little bit too. Um, and like a real pale pink of some sort would be good, you know, because pink's kind of a component of oranges or reds or purples, you know, something of that sort. So kind of your primary colors. Even if there was like an ink fluid that was colorless that you can just slather on here, okay, and get things kind of lubricated, that it would even be fine too. But you know, why not start off with the color because that gives you a head start for whatever color scheme you're working in, than just to lay down some kind of clear fluid that's not really going to be adding to the you know the color scheme narrative that you're establishing. So something like that. So anyways, drop me a note in the comments if you have any questions or whatnot, or send an email. Always eager to help everyone, you know, kind of achieve the looks and techniques that they're looking to kind of incorporate into their own repertoire. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching.